Hey, how's it going out there? So today's video is going to be a little bit different than my normal stuff. You can see I've got the new welcome sign on the wall with the skull and everything in the coffin shape. That means it's October coming up very soon. And for me, over the last 5 years, I've done this October marathon, movie marathon, where you watch 31 movies during the month and review them and talk about them with other people. I've done that on a couple of different forums, and the forums were fun. You kind of do a free form list there. They may have a couple of movies they recommend you watch or something, but I've switched over to this Letterboxd website. I've been using that over the last few years to track my movie watching and do my reviews and all that good stuff. And you're probably not aware of it, but I love movies almost as much as video games. So some of the things that is one of my big hobbies is, video games and movies. So the reason I'm actually making this, I'm not going to do movie reviews. I'm not going to do movie or review a video for each movie I watch. I'm basically just doing this, number one, because I think it's a cool concept that I'd never heard of until a few years ago. So if you're into horror movies and this is something you like, look into these different lists. There's a variety of different ways of doing this. And the way I'm looking at today is one version of it. I saw another version on PDF the other day, and I have not revisited it. I just glanced at it. I didn't really look at the setup of it. But they go from, you picking movies you want to watch to getting a list of movies where you meet criteria. And that's what I have now is this movie, or this list that I follow that gives you the criteria, and you just find movies that fit that. I did some freeform lists before where I'd come up with like a theme. The very first year I did this, I watched a lot of movies because I found out a lot about, like, say, Italian horror and some of the other areas, like the Hammer horror films. I wasn't really into those, and I really wasn't into some of the Italian horror from like Fulci and Argento and all those. So I discovered a whole bunch of stuff, and I love these kind of movies, so I just devoured it. And the second year, I think, might have been the year I did the history of horror. That was my theme. There's a really good YouTube video of like 120 some different 120 years. The guy took one movie and put a clip from one movie from each year that film had been around up to that point. And there was 120, 122 videos or clips or whatever in like a 5-minute video. If I remember it, I'll link it below. It's very cool. If you love horror and don't care about the age and vintage and all that, it's definitely worth a watch. You will also learn, doing these videos or doing these marathons, you'll learn a lot about other countries, their traditions and stuff, because I'm used to the US. I'm used to Friday the 13th, Jason, Freddy, that realm. And to get outside of that and into some other countries like Australia, they have a very different style to them. And France has a different style. If you go into the new French Extremity, that's different than some of the other stuff. You bust into South Korea, man, they got some killer movies in there. Russia has their own take on things. And then, just as you go around the globe, you find all these different really cool videos. Like I would take The Wailing as a perfect example. It has a lot of different religious tones to it than I'm used to. And I love all of that. And I love that. I love horror, and I love that aspect of seeing different traditions brought into that, because like I said, I'm used to American horror. There's might be some East Coast, West Coast differences, but it's still American horror. When you start getting into other countries and seeing, like I said, the Australian, the South Korean, all that kind of thing, it really changes things. You may see a movie that is very similar to something you've already watched, but it's a totally different take on that concept. And I love that. I think that's fantastic. So at any rate, I'm blabbing on about that whole thing. I've done this list for 5 years. I've done a variety of incarnations of it. Like I said, the first year was kind of just whatever I found to watch. One year I did the history of horror. One year I did serial killers. I think the last 2 years I've done Letterboxd. At some point I did one list with Letterboxd. I did the two lists together and I combined as much as I could. It was okay, but I ended up watching a lot of movies. I ended up starting like mid-September and finishing in October. That's a lot of movies to watch, you know. It's a lot of movies to get through 31, much less 70, you know, and I watched a ton of these things. But anyway, I actually love this letterbox because it really forces me to go outside of my comfort zone. You have to find based on criteria, and you don't have to. I mean, it's your list. You can do what you want, but these are the, I guess I should just go through this and you'll see why I like this. So these are the rules for your list. You need to have 6 different countries represented. You need to have 6 different decades represented. You need 7 second films of the franchise, which I thought this was going to be harder to find, but it was way easier than I thought. And because this is the year 2020 and everything's just all fucked anyway, you need 4 body horror films, 2 films from this year, 3 disease-based films for obvious reasons, the highest rated horror film from the 50s that you haven't seen but can access, which that one was a little interesting to find. I think the first pick that I had, or the highest rated one, I couldn't actually rent or buy or anything, so I had to settle for the second one. Of course, being locked down, one film that is set entirely inside one location. An Invisible Person film, I'm not sure where that one came from. Non-Dracula Hammer film, which was pretty easy because I've got a Hammer set over there I haven't finished watching. 2 films with a black director or predominantly black cast or lead. And I thought this was going to be harder to find, but it was actually way easier than I thought. And I've stacked my list with a ton of them. So if we'll get into it, but one problem I have is when a streaming service pulls a movie right when I go to watch it, and then I have to go find something else. So I've subbed a lot of things in. We need a film with a movie theater in it because all the movie theaters were shut down. And this list is actually called Hooptober. And that's because there's always a Tobe Hooper movie. And I've ran through most of his movies now. I've got a few left. I really wanted to get Life Force in here, but I couldn't find it to rent anywhere or stream or purchase or anything. So I ended up picking something else. There is some extra credit this year. The one is called The Witch That Came from the Sea, and the other is Cube 2 Hypercube, which, man, I love the Cube series. They're bad B movies, but I love them. I think they're great. So let's go through my list. These are the movies that I've picked. I have, over here, I have the Universal Horror Pictures from the 30s and 40s. That's a Blu-ray set, and they're all black and white. And I've watched the first one of every one of the collections. You know, it's like Dracula and the Invisible Man and the Mummy, things like that, Wolfman. So I've watched the first of all those. I've watched some of the second ones, but I haven't watched all of the second ones. So I ended up putting in Dracula's Daughter, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, and Revenge of the Creature. So these cover the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So right there, I've got 3 decades down. That was easy. I don't even bother telling you what country these are because I think I've got Canada, Australia, Japan, South Korea, the UK, US. I mean, I've got a ton of countries covered, so I don't have to worry about that. My highest rated movie from the 50s is one called Night of the Demon, so that's taken care of. My non-Dracula Hammer film, I have a collection of two DVD collections of Hammer movies, and one of them was called Maniac, so that takes care of the 60s. And then from the 70s, I've got Rabid, which is a disease film. I've seen most of the other Cronenberg stuff, so this is like one of the last few that I have to watch. And then I sub Shudder, so I have a few movies, or quite a few of these. I think I was able to fit my criteria all into like 13 or 15 movies. And I had a bunch of slots left over to fill out 31. So I started just filling in stuff that looked cool from Shudder, Amazon Prime, whatever I've got. The Evil is from Shudder. This is a 1978 film. Terror Train. This one is going to be my single location because it all takes place on a train. I believe this has got Jamie Lee Curtis in it, like one of the first roles, probably after Halloween. I think if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's got her in it. And then this starts the 80s. So then I've got Mortuary, which is a fill-in. There's a movie called Warning Sign. It's a disease-based film. That looked cool. It sounded neat. Now, these next two, these are the movies that this is where I run into problems. So, Shudder has Sleepaway Camp. They used to have Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3. Well, for some reason they dropped them. So I have to go check my list all the time and make sure that I can still get the movies I want. And I found out they were gone from Shudder, but Amazon Prime had them. So I'm like, all right, cool. I don't have to rent them. They're there. So I've got Sleepaway Camp 2 for the second film in a franchise. And then Sleepaway Camp 3 is filler because it finishes out that series. My next movie starts the 90s, and that's Puppet Master 2. I'm pretty sure I've watched this one before, but I'm not entirely certain because back when I was in college, I used to rent a whole bunch of movies. And I think I've seen the first 2, 3, or 4 Puppet Master movies, but it's been so long I haven't seen them. And I have a Puppet Master collection. It's some shitty DVD collection, but it comes with that and the Killjoy movies, and it's like all of them up to a point. So I figured, I like the Puppet Masters. It's kind of a neat concept. So I needed a second film in a franchise. So here's my answer. To get the Tobe Hooper film in, I got Night Terrors on here, which I've not seen. I don't think it's that great. Hooper's kind of hit or miss for me. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. And starting in the year 2000 is Killjoy. Again, I needed the second film of a franchise. So I looked at that Puppet Master set and I said, man, I already got, Killjoy and Killjoy 2 on there. And I believe this is also a black lead to this as Killjoy himself. So I'm not counting these in that pool of movies, but if something happens, I own these on DVD, so I'm going to have them regardless. So those are in that list. The next movie is called The Evil One, and I have this one down for black director or cast. I have to preface this. I don't actually try to read too much about these movies, so I may look at the cast. I looked at a list of, black characters or black directors, and I looked through the movies. I found the one that was available and ones that looked cool, and I thought, all right, let's put these on the list. So some of these may or may not fit. I've like on my serial killer list, I had some that were questionable whether they fit, and you don't really know it until you actually watch them. So I've had a hard time sometimes actually finding the correct movie, and I don't want to ruin the movie before I go into it, so I have to take somebody else's word for it. And The Evil One should fit the category, but I'm not sure. So we're going to see. Now, these next 3 are movies that I can't say I ever wanted to watch. I really don't want to watch. I'm kind of not looking forward to them. I have this line of stuff that I really don't want to see, like the Hostel movies. I don't ever want to watch the Hostel movies, but because I watched these 3 that I'm about to talk about, I ended up watching the Hostel movie. It was okay. I skipped 2 and 3. I'm not into the whole torture porn thing. I don't care. I'm not interested in that. I love violence, but I'm not interested in like middle era Saw movies. They're just boring. It's just not. I like entertainment, not just violent to be violent and bloody. I'm not into that. So the movies I'm talking about are the Human Centipede trilogy. There's the first, second, and third. Of course, I needed body horror, so that fills up that almost fills up the entire ask of body horror. But I also needed the second film of franchise, and these cover the 2000s and the 2010s. So that's 2 more decades. So I've got plenty of coverage in there. I've heard the first movie's okay, the second one's supposed to be good, and then the third one's kind of but I'm kind of looking forward to it and kind of not. I mean, I don't really want to watch them, but at the same time, it's going to probably be my personal most controversial thing to watch on this list. The next movie I have is Antiviral, and this one covers body horror and disease from what the description says. Again, I have to go by what somebody's telling me in their list or their description. So I hope this covers both of those because I'm counting on it too. But like I said, if not, maybe I've got some other ones stacked up too. After that, I'm going into Tusk, which is a Kevin Smith movie, and it's some guy turning somebody else into a walrus or something stupid. I really don't want to watch this, but I needed body horror. And I thought, all right, if I can do the human centipede, I'm going to do this piece of shit. So I have zero expectations for it. I've seen part of Red State, hated it, turned it off. I actually forced myself to watch Yoga Hosers, which I consider one of the worst. That's my pick of my tipping point of what is the absolute shittiest movies ever. If it's worse than Yoga Hosers, then it's saying something. You know what I mean? That's my, if it's down that low, it's bad. So we'll see. I don't know where Tusk lies, north or south of Yoga Hosers. And then the other black director or black cast is going to be The Eve. Again, I don't know anything about it. I think it fits the criteria, but I'm just going to have to watch it and see. If some of these don't fit the criteria, I may call an audible and put something else in there. We'll see. I have to get there first. The next several are going to be fillers from Shudder, which is Housewife, Hagazusa, The Quiet Room, which I believe also has a black cast on it, so that one might double up. There's a movie called Monstrum. It looked cool. Then back onto my list again. Well, back onto the criteria again. I needed a film with a theater in it. So this one is called Nightmare Cinema. It's also on Shudder, and it's an anthology of several different stories that are told about somebody in a movie theater. That's all I know about it. It looks like it fits the category. I'm hoping. I needed another second film in a franchise, so It Chapter 2. I've seen the first one. I have not seen the second one. I thought, man, that's perfect. Good timing. So I threw that one in here. And then the last two on the list are 2020 movies, and one of them's The Invisible Man, so that covers this year, and The Invisible Person. And then I needed another movie from this year, so I chose Relic. They both look cool, and I'm looking forward to it. And of course, there's The Witch Came from the Sea, which has an amazing cover. I've heard it's a total piece of shit movie, but it's got an amazing cover on it, so that I'm going to get that one watched. And then Cube 2, which I love watching. I think it's got a fantastic premise, and I love the whole thing about it. So that is pretty much my list of movies. If you're interested in following this, I'm going to try to remember to put my link to my list down below. If you are on Letterboxd, hit me up, follow me on there. I follow whoever back. I love seeing reviews, especially good reviews, not necessarily long reviews, but just something that's more than a sentence of the movie, of a quote from the movie. You know, I love seeing what people think about movies because that makes me find new stuff to watch. As far as movies on my channel, mine is a gaming channel. That's pretty much all I ever plan on doing. I thought about doing this. I am not going to do a review for every movie I watch. What I might do is a week in review where I go over all the movies I watched that week and what was good and what was bad. It's going to depend on time, how much effort I want to put into this, because as you can imagine, getting through 30 some movies in a month is tough, and I'm not starting until October 1st. I do have a week's vacation coming off in there that I'm going to try to knock a bunch out. And I also watch 2 or 3 on a week. You know, I'll watch 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, something like that. I usually watch a bunch on the weekends. But at any rate, that is what Hooptober is. That's my list. I figured I'd share it if anybody's interested, if you want to follow on it, if you want to join in on it. All of the stuff should be down below, and you've got all the information. And that's it. That's all I got. So hopefully this isn't too long. And I don't know, we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.